I'm on page 2 of your 4.3 notes for Advanced Algebra 1. In the directions says write an explicit formula for the geometric sequences, then use the formula to find the value of the 8th term. Your homework may have a different number, but we are going to use the 8th term on this particular group of problems. So looking at number 9, it's very easy to see that negative 2 is the first term, so you can label that f of 1. And then to get from 1 to the next, we keep multiplying by 3. So your actual formula, f of n equals the first term times 3 to the n minus 1. And then to get the 8th term, f of 8, you would do negative 2 times 3 to the 8 minus 1. If you don't want to write 8 minus 1, that's fine. I think we all know that 8 minus 1 is 7. And then these are going to get either really big really quick or really small really quick when you're doing something to a power like 7. So this is where you need to get out your calculator and just type in negative 2 times 3 to the 7th. And that should give us negative 4,374. You should probably write your answer in that kind of notation. F of 8, the 8th term, is negative 4,374. Number 10, you're trying to figure out what you're multiplying by. If you remember, when you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. So from 1 to the next in your numerators, 3 to 3 to 3 to 3, we keep multiplying by 1. And in your denominator, 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, we keep multiplying by 2. So every one is half as big as the next. So this is your first term, 3 halves. Your common ratio is 1/2. So f of n equals your first term, 3 over 2, times 1/2. Since 1/2 is a fraction, I'm going to go ahead and put that in parentheses. That way you realize that you're taking the whole fraction to the n minus 1, not just the top. Whoops, cut him out. You should include him. And then to find the 8th term, we do 3 halves times 1/2 to the 8 minus 1. Again, 8 minus 1, you can just write 7. Plug that into your calculator. When you do plug it into your calculator, you're going to need to put parentheses around both the 3 halves and the 1/2. I'm pretty sure if you don't use the parentheses around both, you're not going to get the right answer. So that gives us 3 over 256 for the 8th term. Number 11. Number 11, the first term is 27. That's very easy to see. Remember, it looks like, I think a lot of us would say we're dividing by negative 3, but we don't want it in terms of division. That's like multiplying by negative 1/3. Use the reciprocal to multiply by instead of dividing. So my first f of n equals my first term times negative 1/3 to the n minus 1. Again, this is really nice because you don't have to actually distribute and simplify like we did in the arithmetic sequence. If I'm going to find the 8th term, I've got to do 27 times negative 1/3. 8 minus 1 is 7. Again, use parentheses, put that into your calculator, and get the 8th term is negative 1 over 81. If you're feeling comfortable with this, again, feel free to either mute me and just watch along. You do what you got to do to make sure you understand. Number 12. Our first term is 5/3. If you're looking at the pattern of numbers here, let's see here. We're going from 3 to 6 to 12 to 24. So we are multiplying by 2 in the bottom, and 5 to 5 to 5, we're multiplying by 1. So again, your common ratio is a half. So times 1/2 to the n minus 1. To get your 8th term, you're going to do 5/3. Make sure you use parentheses in the calculator, times 8 minus 1, which is 7. Don't type in 8 minus 1 into your calculator. Do the 7. So we're going to get 5/384. Number 13. Pretty easy to see. We keep multiplying by -2. And our first term's also -2. Again, this is negative, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in parentheses. The 8th term is -2 times -2. 8 minus 1 is 7. So the 8th term is 256. You can kind of check yourself, make sure you haven't made any sign mistakes. The first and third terms, the odd terms, are negative, and the second and the fourth term are positive. So the 8th term, that's an even term, should also be positive. Just something to help you check. Number 14. 14 is a little more of a doozy here. I'm sure you realize that. Let's see here. If you're ever unsure, you could plug consecutive terms into your calculator and divide them to figure out what we keep multiplying by. But I think most of you could figure out, going from here 1 to -1/4, we're multiplying by -1/4. So this is not pretty. That's okay. Real world math is not pretty either. 9/144 times -1/4 to the n minus 1. And then when we have to use it to get the 8th term, eight minus 1 is 7. For this, you might have to do separate parts in your calculator. If I remember correctly, it doesn't really like you. So you might have to do the -1/4 to the 7th part, write that down, and then multiply straight across separately your numerators and denominators. Because we're going to get -9/2359296. And then if you reduce that, if you put that into your calculator, that's going to give us -1/262,144. That's a little ridiculous, but there it is. Okay, so again, we kept plugging in 8, and we did 8 minus 1 is 7, because they specifically asked us for the 8th term. If they ask you for like the 20th term, 20 minus 1, you have to use 19 here. I think you've got that. The recursive formula, it's pretty darn similar to the same idea as your arithmetic formula. F of n, the nth term, you're going to do r times the previous term. Again, f of n minus 1 is the previous term, when f of 1 equals, you tell me what the first term is, and then just a heads up, a lot of times you're going to see n is greater than 1. I don't know why we decided we had to write this in geometric. You can't go backwards. Remember, n is your term number, So this only works for like finding the next couple of terms. Like you know the first, and then you have to go back. Same idea here. To find a recursive formula, find the common ratio, state the value of the first term, and substitute values into the formula. And again, if you want to underline, we're only plugging in for R and what the first term is. The rest is just memorization. Hopefully not memorization, hopefully you understand it. So the nth term, you're going to do your common ratio times the previous term. If you want, you could switch this. F of n minus 1 times R. When we actually plug in for numbers, I just like to make it look more like a coefficient. So I like to put the R first. But you're certainly not wrong if you put the R second. And then either way, when or where, the first term is something. And again, a lot of times we're going to see n is greater than 1 as part of your recursive formula.